Greetings and salutations, exiles. In this video, we're going to be discussing bows and comparative content with bows. And so I had recently been playing a whole bunch of Divinity 2, and the bow mechanic in Divinity 2 is amazing. I traditionally don't play a lot of bows, but I've actually been using it in PvP kind of arena, like the old school Unreal tournament type of stuff, where you're running around and jumping and shooting people mid. It's that responsive and that quick. And I was like, I just don't remember Conan Exiles being that snappy and that quick. So I decided to get back into Conan and try to isolate what exactly is is the difference. Like why is the Divinity 2 archery and bow responsiveness so good? Like why what is it about that mechanic that is just like second to none? And I did a direct comparison on like bow drop, when you draw the bow back and you snap it and you shoot over range, how much the bow arcs. Of course, Divinity 2 does it in first person, and where Exiles does it in second person. But there's a couple things that I noticed, and I got into the stats too. Like I played around with the stats to try to make it to where the the mo- uh, the movement speed was quicker. Try to get it to where I had that kind of agility that I had in Divinity 2. And at first I thought it was the controller, so I got into the controller, and um, I was like, okay, well, it's got to be the controller, and that's part of it, right? So I did the whole where you kind of make it act like an Xbox controller. The movement is like the console, because the PC movement and the console movement, the way you like quick snap and look around, is a big difference. But then I was playing with like trajectory and to see how it felt. So there's a couple things that I think Conan needs to revisit, and one of it is there's the plume, on the arrow when you shoot your bow and you're in movement. I think the plume is just like 20% or 15% too much. And it's one of those things where I was doing some testing, and it's like 8 to 10 feet off at full plume when you're moving. So it's like you have a 20% chance of hitting your target. And it's one thing when you're aiming for the head and you hit like the house next to it. I think the plume is just a little bit too much. But but that's not a, that's kind of touches into the technique thing. But then once I started doing this, I realized that it was the movement speed. Like he moves so incredibly slow, and you can see it here in the video example that he's like tiptoeing almost. He moves so incredibly slow, and I think it's an unrealistic kind of perception about moving with a bow. And now, of course, Divinity 2's movement speed, is not realistic at all either. It's almost arguably on the other end of the stream, but the gameplay is snappy and enjoyable, and it's really rewarding in the feeling. Like it's a satisfying gameplay with the bow. And so I was thinking that Conan could do one of two things, because I got in here and I messed around with all the stats, and I tried like 4 or 5 different variations of stats to try to get this movement speed, to where it was quicker, to where when I strafed to the right or the left, it would ultimately be more responsive. And I noticed it was quicker with a one-handed or a two-handed weapon than it was actually with the bow. It's like when they reintegrated those animations, the for some reason it seems like it just moves like an extra 20% faster. And you see when I hit shift, I can kind of like step it up a little bit and move quicker. But when I hit shift with a bow, it just does a snapshot. So there's no like, even if I use my stamina and try to speed up, I can't do it because it's defaulted to the snapshot. And what I realized is it's not the bow mechanic. After the bow rework, the archery is actually amazing now. Like it really is super good. But I was thinking, what would make it a lot better is just to kind of get it to where it's just continuing the polish of systems to get them to where they're spot on. And I went and I recorded some Divinity 2 just to kind of give an example. And this is kind of the pushing the boundaries of my editing and uh, my understanding of what my capabilities are. But uh, I realized some of the animations though on these, like when I try to block this attack, some of the animations interfere with the attack. I would have to double click a couple times to get that attack. And so here we have the strafing and what I'm talking about. And I'm covering on the Divinity Divinity 2. What am I saying that? I'm saying that wrong. It's Destiny 2. I've been saying Divinity the whole time. Destiny 2. The strafe time is, I mean, my distance that I cover is almost twice the distance. But I thought what was neat though is with they've added the target pads and now they show the damage when you shoot them with a bow, and I thought that was so great. Now you can do some actual testing in your single player mode and kind of have a comparison to what the stats are, and the bullseyes actually work. And here it's shown. But I was super happy with this kind of refinement of the target pads. I would like to see them implement a target mannequin, like the one you would see with Bruce Lee. He in some of those old movies where he's practicing his karate on the target mannequin. I'd like to see a target dummy similar to that, like a Hay target dummy, but it's the strafe, and you can't, because it's attached to the here I'm testing out the arc on the bows. I'm trying to see kind of comparable, and I'm seeing if I'm in combat or out of combat. And I actually thought I was encumbered. I was like, why is my guy moving so slow? Like why can't I not get him to move anything faster? And this, I guess this has always been this way, and I was never really cognizant of it until I started playing some other games, and while shooting and moving, and then I realized that here I'm testing the arc, the drop off, the arrow drop off, and it's comparable. It's very comparable to Destiny 2. Very, very comparable. So it's not the bullet drop, it's not the speed of the arrow. It's just the strafing and the movement speed is locked down to such a slow degree, and the melee feels much quicker because you can tab, you can hold shift and speed up and kind of move out of the way, where when you're holding a bow you're permanently locked because the shift option is locked into your quick snap or your quick shot, and so you're locked into this really slow strafe. um, and I completely realize that there are other mechanics at play, and they don't want to speed up the gameplay because it could potentially make it be easier to kind of avoid monsters and stuff, and it easily avoid. But I could see in heavy armor, this is why heavy armor isn't picked, because people want that combat role to kind of compensate for this lack of strafing ability, or the lack of not having the shift. But this is why the bow, this is what's holding up the. Something else that I realized as well is that no matter how much stat adjustment that I went through to try to change the agility, because I figured if I dumped a bunch of points into agility, it would give me a higher degree of strafing and movement speed while in combat, and I could not tell a difference. Like I would count as I strafed back and forth, and um, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't get to where the agility would make a difference in my movement speed. And so I think agility's broken, to be honest. I think agility just ultimately adds a higher armor value for the more agility that you have in it. And I could be completely wrong, but I feel like it's broken because it doesn't make your character move faster. And I think after they did the stamina update, I think somehow agility isn't manifested the way that it's supposed to, because you can see In this build here, I'm still moving at the same speed, and it would take me 10 seconds to move from one target, hit all four targets, and hit the other target. And it's that's the big difference, is the strafing and the movement speed diminishes from the overall gameplay. But I hope you find this video enjoyable. There was quite a bit of editing, and this is much different than the content that I normally make, and so it might seem a little fragmented, but I was trying to capture and kind of articulate some ideas and problem solve myself, like problem solve what is it that is so different. And so in my mind, I figured it out. And I hope this helps. I hope this helps the developer. I hope it helps FunCom and the team to kind of get their kind of revisit and maybe take a hard look at a couple. I mean, I know they got the workflow and all the stuff that they're trying to develop, but maybe they can kind of revisit and assess the strafing, because I feel like it's fine with weapons because you can hold down shift and kind of speed up a little bit at the cost of stamina. But with bows, you're locked into that crawl strafe. It's like you're trying to tippy toe or something, and it's either the animation's messed up with the strafe, but it's so slow. It's so slow. And here you can see the plume, what I was referring to. Like I'm shooting the one target and I'm hitting the one to the right. And the plume at that range is like almost 8 or 9 feet. And so I think the plume is a little big, and I think the strafe, maybe it's the animation, but something's up. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this video. If you agree with this content, please go to the FunCom Forums and put in your personal opinion. It's okay with me if you disagree or agree, but the only way that we drive positive change as a community is if we use our active voice. And they will not implement any of these changes unless the traffic on the forums on this particular topic is high. So I need a high degree of participation. I'll leave a description in the link below. Thank you for watching.